parents. They seem to be in such a major. Welcome. My name is Erica Kane, and welcome to the BMore podcast. Today's guest, he is running for a Senate seat for Maryland in the 2024 election to replace Ben Cardin. He is a businessman serving as U.S. Representative for Maryland's 6th Congressional District. Please welcome Congressman David Trone.
Erica, great being here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time. Such a busy schedule. Primary just weeks away, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here. How are you feeling with the primary right around the corner?
That's good. We're on the home stretch. It's been a long run, but it's had a lot of chances to meet a lot of fascinating folks all over the state. So
Okay.
It's been enjoyable.
Yeah, meeting people, networking, that's always a good part.
Yeah, no, I'm a people person, so I'm always happy to get out and talk to folks and hear their stories and the difficulties they face sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you talk about meeting people. Before we get down to the brass tacks, I would love to give people and voters a chance to learn more about who you are. Many hear the name David Trone. Many may be familiar with Total Wine and more. And as we get closer to election for Senate, folks want to know, who is David Trone really? Now, you just participated in the Democratic debate held last week between yourself and County Executive Angela Alsop-Brooks, who is also running against you for the Maryland Senate seat. And she said, quote, in this debate, "Money can't buy you love, and it won't buy you Maryland." So is David Trone some out-of-touch business guy that comes from money trying to buy his way into the Senate, or do people just really need to learn more about you and your story and how you got here?
Yeah, no, everybody likes to portray you as, that you've been successful, and absolutely I have been successful, but what folks often miss and we need to do a better job, I think. Sometimes that's a failure on our part of getting out the message of exactly where we came from. And I was born in Prince George's County, actually, in Cheverly. My mom was a public school teacher. She taught school in Greenbelt. But we lived on a farm, really, when we grew up, just over the Pennsylvania border. And what people forget and don't talk about, really, is that we didn't have a lot, but I loved it. When I was 11, 12 years old, we didn't even have an indoor toilet. We had an outhouse, and it was pretty miserable in the winter. So we didn't have a lot. It was a 200-acre farm, 55,000 chickens, 600 hogs, a real working farm. And I punched a time clock for $1.30 an hour from age 12 on.
Wow.
So it means you're working a lot, 60, 70, 80, as time went on, even 100 hours a week, which meant all you do is work. That means you work, you eat, you sleep, you work, you eat, you sleep.
Yeah.
That's the drill when you're running your egg processing plant, which we did 13 shifts a week. So when the farm was at its peak. Unfortunately, what people often don't know is my dad had a disease. He was an abusive alcoholic. And all of us, everybody, I know all your listeners know folks that have that disease and struggle, with it. And because of that, when I was 25, after I had gone to college, come back, work for my dad. At 25, my mom left, took my sister, and went to Cambridge, Maryland. And I stayed with my brother and said, we're going to figure this out. Unfortunately, we did not figure it out. And at age 28, everything went under. The farm went bankrupt, Chapter 11, Chapter 7. They took the business. They took the home we lived in. So everything was lost, and then I had to step up and take care of my mom. I'm the oldest of 5. And I went out and brokered eggs. And you know what an egg broker is?
An egg broker.
Egg broker.
Are you,
Think about that,
selling eggs?
Yeah, it is basically selling eggs. It's selling eggs from one egg processing plant to another.
Okay.
And one might be in Maryland, one might be in Ohio.
Okay.
And then each time you sell a truck load of eggs, you might make 2 or 3 cents per dozen.
Okay.
So I was a company of one.
Okay.
Me. and I was a phone guy. So and that then wasn't one of these, of course. It was a payphone. So I lived on payphones. So I did that. the second thing, I said, I got to get more education. So I applied for grad school, took out student loans. In those days, you could pay your loans off. I paid mine off 7, 8 years later. Went to the Wharton School of Business, got an MBA. And while I was there, I was the guy in the hall brokering eggs and opened up a small beer and soda store. And when I mean small, small is the operative word there.
Okay.
And you might say low rent, you might say dirty, you might say, and not the nicest neighborhood, but it was $3 a foot. I literally built the check stands with my younger brother. We took plywood and 2x4s, and we built the stands. We painted them yellow and put a cheap cash register on top. We built a cooler and put beer in it. We didn't have money for a sign, and we just painted beer and soda warehouse.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Okay.
So that's what I called it. And I had one really good idea, though. Sell things cheap.
Okay.
People like a bargain.
Of course.
And everybody else in the business of selling beer and sodas in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, didn't sell things cheap. And I did. That disrupted the market. I've always been a disruptor.
Okay.
I've always been
In a good way.
as John Lewis would say, good trouble. And so we've always caused good trouble. And so we didn't start with a lot. I guess that's the story what we're telling. And to add a little insult to injury, after 2.5 years of brokering eggs, all the chickens in the Mid-Atlantic region got the avian flu, just like COVID. They wiped out overnight 7 million chickens were like eradicated.
And where did that leave you as an egg
That
broker?
left me with nothing.
Yeah.
That left me with no chickens to sell the eggs to.
Yeah.
So then we had just the small beer store selling beer and soda, and that turned out to work.
Yeah.
And slowly, can I emphasize the word slowly? Slowly over decades, I built the company, and it's so different now than what I was then.
Yes.
And Total Wine's now a whole nother type of company.
Very humble beginnings. So just listening to your upbringing and your parents, a huge part of your story, I hear a lot of hustle. I hear a lot of surviving yet thriving. So coming from that background, what was it within you that pushed you? We're talking magna cum laude, right? At Furman University, Phi Beta Kappa, and then your master's at Wharton, UPenn, that's Ivy League. What was it within you coming from such humble beginnings that you just kept thriving?
Well, my mom, I give my mom credit for pretty much everything in our success. And my mom was a public school teacher, but she knew how to work. And she modeled her ability to work. And at the end of the day, I might not be the brightest guy in the room, but I'm probably going to work the hardest. And if you show up and you're always there and you put in the time, I believe that the good Lord lets good things happen to people. The harder I work, the more success I have, and I think that's true. And I never quit on people either. Like my dad. He went out and married a much younger woman.
Okay.
Had another family.
Okay.
But 3-4 years later, he hit the bottom. And when he hit the bottom, I went to him and we disagreed on many things. And I was able to get him a 28-day program. And I went with him to a rehabilitation program in Pittsburgh. And then he came out and we did a lot of AA meetings together, a lot of coffee, and got him in a good way. And then he came back and I hired him back and he worked for me until he passed of Alzheimer's. So it's about keeping your family together. Hustle is a perfect word. I'm absolutely a hustler. And I think that's why we've been successful in public service. People see that I don't need a job with the federal government. I'm in this on a mission. They respect the fact that you're doing it for a reason. It's like a calling.
Absolutely. Now, your father and his struggles with alcohol, and then you started family business and it's alcohol.
Yeah.
Right? Now, was that because it
great
was an
question.
industry that your family was already familiar with, or?
No, it's a great question, and yeah, and the fact that it's just kind of ironic that, Dad had, such an issue with that, and when he came back and worked, we kept him in different areas
Okay.
that weren't involving alcohol. And as you get on, the company gets bigger. It's like my nephew Ian, when he came back, who later died of fentanyl. I'm sure we'll talk about that. A fentanyl overdose when he was 24. He worked at the company, yet he was an ongoing addict. So I put him in loss prevention. So he spent his time in LP, loss prevention, not in a store.
Right,
but
right,
surrounded by alcohol.
right.
And we've always been a leader in this area as far as supporting, being honest and real about the dangers and the downside. And when they talk about, more severity of DUIs, we always support those type of issues. We need to put money to help this addiction, and alcohol is not going to go anywhere.
Right.
But let's do it the right way. So we have the best record in the United States on, not selling to minors. Making sure we card everybody. So only adults get alcohol. We support things for like ignition locks. So if someone's has DUIs, we got to make sure they don't drive.
Yeah, of
So we
course.
try and be progressive.
Right,
We
right.
are progressive.
Absolutely, because I know, some folks may ask, and it may feel contradictory at times, especially with us having a growing mental health and addiction crises here
Yeah.
in Maryland.
No, great question. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, for sure. And, with you running for office and some people feeling that, the funding to address the issues may not be used properly. Sure, the state has invested millions in having Narcan on hand and different things like that. But then once, people go into the hospital and they come out, what about the recovery centers? And, do we have do we have the amount of centers and the resources on hand for those people afterwards? So where does Maryland stand in your eyes on addressing this, and how would you tackle the issue if you become senator?
Yeah, well, I think the put is not how would, it's how have you.
Okay.
It's past tense. I've been doing this job for 6 years now, and 3 terms in Congress. I'm ranked the most effective member of the Maryland delegation, but not just number 1. I'm ranked 3 times higher than number 2.
Okay.
So there's a big gap
Okay.
between where I'm at and all the other folks who, between you and me, don't get a ton done. I get a ton done because I feel urgency. I've bust my butts every single day. I don't have any hobbies. I don't own a pet set of golf clubs. I've never belonged to a country club. I just like to work, and I love to work.
Yeah.
And I'm driven on a mission, and it's personal to me. So the mission of addiction, having addiction be part of my family. My family struggles with it. My dad, of course. My nephew dying of fentanyl overdose, and I'd spent 5 years with him in the trenches, in the nitty gritty, so I understand it. And then mental illness, which is so connected to addiction. Mental illness runs in my family, and it runs in 1 in 5 American families.
Absolutely.
So in the U.S. Congress, for the last 3 terms, I've led the charge to drive funding and legislation to mental health and the addiction space. I formed a group called the Substance Use Disorder and Bipartisan Mental Health Task Force. We have 140 members, Republicans, Democrats, 140. And together we put together over 100 bills last year. And I'm co-chair, co-founder. And 26 of our bills became law. So we're passing things that have become law, like the state opioid response grant bill. That's $8.75 billion over 5 years. Things like the medically assisted treatment bill, so we can use buprenorphine, a drug, to fight the opioid addiction. Things like the recovery housing bill, because we don't have good housing standards for folks in recovery. So, and driving the bipartisan mental health bill, it was $3 billion on mental health for our kids K through 12 that's coming out right now. So we're doing and have done this job, and what people sometimes forget, the U.S. Congress, every bill I pass it through the U.S. Senate. Every bill. My target really is the U.S. Senate and getting things done, because I've built the relationships in the House of Representatives on the Republican side to get stuff done. I've got Hakeem and the support of the Democratic leadership. That's easy. What's challenging is getting 60 votes in the Senate, because while we'd love to get rid of the filibuster, that's not reality.
Absolutely.
So every bill we do, we need 10 Republican votes to pass. So that's what I've been doing the last 3 terms, is getting things through. That's the hard one, the U.S. Senate.
Absolutely. One of the major issues for voters right now across the country, women's reproductive rights. We have about 27 states with abortion limits, about 15 states with abortion bans, women being criminalized and jailed for attempting to exercise their reproductive rights. I know you have connections with Planned Parenthood. You're a father of daughters. You come from a strong woman, obviously. You know, any woman who can pick up the pieces of a family in turmoil and keep pushing, right? Can you imagine the government telling someone like your mom how she could govern her body?
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
You know, your opponent, Angela Alsobrooke, she mentioned during the debate last week, you and through your companies, you've donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to Republicans, some of who support the strictest anti-abortion laws, including Ken Paxton, Attorney General in Texas, Brian Kemp in Georgia. Was there any truth to that? I just wanted to give you a chance to really rebuttal.
I think it's important to talk about it, and it's kind of hard for folks that are not a CEO and don't live in business to understand how folks have to protect their team members in each state.
Okay.
I've got 12,000 people that count on me, 12,000 for food on the table, pay their mortgages, get their kids to college. And of those 12,000, probably over half of those are in red states. They're in Texas, they're in Florida, they're in Tennessee. And in all those red states, I'm a disruptor. Remember that Good Trouble earlier? The guy selling things for low prices? My competitors don't like us. Consumers love us.
Okay.
Customers love us.
Okay.
But competitors don't. So what competitors do is they go to government to push against you.
Okay.
And that threatens the jobs of our folks in those states.
Okay.
They go against you to pass laws like in Tennessee. They pass a law that said if you don't live in Tennessee, you can't sell wine or spirits or beer.
Right.
Now, we had to fight that.
Okay.
We fought that, and we won at the U.S. Supreme Court 7-2.
Okay.
But we're under attack in every state we go, and that means you have to defend yourself, which means there's Republicans and there's Democrats in all these different states, and the company. The company writes checks to Democrats and Republicans in those states. But on a national level, the only checks we write are to Democrats.
Okay.
I'm the largest funder for Democrats in the last 3 cycles. In the last 6 or 7, I've given over $20 million to Democrats.
Okay.
So I'm the #1 guy in Congress writing checks to Democrats, supporting them all over the United States. 0 Republicans, 0. But the company still has to operate.
Right. So
In
those payments.
Texas,
Gotcha.
you've got to, if we don't, those folks don't have a job in Texas, I'm responsible for that.
Gotcha.
So I think folks sometimes they're trying to conflate what someone who operates in Texas and lives in Texas, what their views are, and these are never about abortion. These are about your job survival.
Okay. So you had to make those payments to protect the company and the people in your company.
Company in the people. And that's part of the problem with government, in which we should talk about, and that's where we really got to figure out how to put people over, I call it people over politics, because the folks in government, the career officials, they think they all have a right to get checks, to get paid by a lot of folks. So what you see is these big companies like Exxon coming to politicians and saying, hey, take my money. And when they take their money, you owe something to Exxon. They see the same kind of thing with places like, say, Pfizer, who's not helping us on drug prices. And they go to the politicians, and the politicians want their money. So the politicians always have their hands out trying to push companies to give them money. And that's why we got to try and get this PAC money out of government.
Okay, all right. And you as a senator, if you were senator, your stance on abortion and reproductive
Yeah,
rights?
our stance, and that's, our stance on abortion and reproductive rights has been very clear. We voted already to codify Roe Wade. I voted for that in the 117th Congress. We have 100% rating from Planned Parenthood, 100% for NARAL, and we actually, there's been 66 clinics have closed in 15 states. So we were able to take a clinic that closed in West Virginia and open it in Red, Cumberland, Maryland. So we actually opened a brand-new abortion clinic about a year ago in Cumberland. I went up, cut the ribbon, gave the grand opening talk. So we've been walking the walk, and every time Planned Parenthood has come to us, every single time, we help them. We go to bat. We're supporting right now the constitutional amendment that put that in Maryland's constitution. And that's where we come apart with Larry Hogan. You know, Larry Hogan, I mean, his father, 1973, did the first effort to ban abortion in the United States. He's got a 40-year history of working against abortion. And that's why we cannot let Larry Hogan win and become the U.S. Senator and give them the balance of power. Because that seat, this seat, will be the balance of power in Washington.
Yes, and I know you mentioned you wanted to make Roe v. Wade law of the land again, so thank you for clarifying on that and just taking the chance to rebuttal on that. You just mentioned PAC funds and money, and you said that we have to get that out. What would be your solution?
Yeah, right now we just need to say, these PAC, these special interests, you can't take the money. Do you know how much money was given the last 2-year cycle at the federal level? Just the federal level, Congress and the senators, it's hard to believe, $1.9 billion. 600 million was direct contributions from Exxon and Pfizer and the National Restaurant Association, who holds our waiters and waitresses to $3.65 an hour.
Yes.
Plus tip. But what if you're a bad tipper and they get nothing?
Yes.
I mean, people can't, that's wrong. That has to be $15. So we're fighting against all those groups. And in fact, I don't take their money. We take none of their money. That gives us the independence to push back against the National Restaurant Association, against Pfizer, against Exxon, who are doing nothing but their own bidding. So the other money, the $1.3 billion, that's really in junkets. That's all the members of Congress off to Park City.
Okay.
And there's going to be a fundraising event there. So they pay for that. Then it's Miami.
Okay.
Then it's the Bahamas. So you've got this culture of money and these lobbyists, and you can't tell me that if someone takes you to Park City, take you and your husband gets to come along, or your partner, and you go to wherever, that people don't feel a bit indebted.
Right.
So myself and folks like progressives like Ro Khanna and John Jackson, we want to see all of that gone.
Okay.
And take all of that money, that special interest money, that PAC money, out of politics.
Okay.
That's the real poison in politics, because these folks, they want something. And think about how much time folks spend raising money from those kind of people.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're spending your time raising money. I'm, calling you for money. I can't be out listening to the problems and understanding what's happening with mental health. I can't take the time to go to, criminal justice groups to find out how people have been justice impacted and what solutions we can get them, because they would be spending your time asking for money.
Absolutely.
And when you're asking, I think people are asking back. It's common sense.
Right. And just those ties, like you said, being indebted to those companies, so to speak, or when you talk about taxes and different things like that, and you're asking money from these corporations, yet you still have to deal with whether you're cutting or slashing certain taxes or giving tax breaks or not. And yeah.
I mean, you crushed it there, because, the Trump tax cut stole $200 billion every year, $200 billion a year from us, the American people, that should be going to education, mental health, addiction, returning citizens to get them a second chance
Absolutely.
and a job. That's where that money should go. Instead, it went to Exxon and Apple and eBay and all these big companies. So they're paying effectively around 12%. 55 of the 500 paid zero.
Yeah.
Do anybody, 500 people you know, how many of them paid zero? I don't think anybody paid zero, but these guys are paying 12% and some zero. And that's why people like Roe, Kana, John Jackson, myself, we've got legislation to say we just got to take it out of here.
Yeah.
But the other politicians, the career politicians, they hate that because they live on it. That's their mother's milk.
Right.
They just want that.
Absolutely.
And they don't want change. I love change.
Okay.
I love change.
It's a disruptor.
I'm a troublemaker. I admit that, and I've always been.
Well, now is the time in Maryland and in Baltimore especially that we need change. We need accountability. We need a different type of politics because the people are not thriving, and there are a small fraction of people that are thriving, like the people that you just mentioned that don't really want the change, but the masses are not thriving.
We need people with a record, not rhetoric. A record to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Pass bills like
Yeah.
Pell Grants for returning citizens. That's my bill. Folks, how could we not give an education to folks that wanted a second chance?
Absolutely.
What kind of society could do that? Yet that was the case. Now we can do Pell Grants. And we failed so many of our young folks because our education system, and I'm endorsed by the teachers and the educators, but we need to help all be better.
Absolutely.
And that's not just universal pre-K, that's universal 3-year-olds. So many folks can't afford health daycare, but why don't we have public school at 3, full day? We know the brain is learning exponentially fast at age 3. Europe does it. France, England, Germany, they all have full day 3-year-old. We don't even talk about it. We're like, well, we don't, that'd be a big change. Hell yeah, it'd be a big change. And would it cost money? Heck yeah, it's going to cost money. But would it save us billions, tens of billions? Yeah, you spend money to make money because you create folks that have a chance to succeed.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're investing in people.
Absolutely.
How good is that?
Well, it should be good, and you would think everyone's on the same page. Current politicians, those that are on the ballot, currently running, that have worked their way up, many of those folks grew up in public education systems. They know that the degrees that they obtained made the difference between who they are now and who they could have been. It's really no argument as to how important education is.
But then they don't want to put the change. Think about free community college. How do we not have free community college here in Maryland? Tennessee, red state, has it. Garrett County, in my district, Republican Garrett County, I get 25% of the vote in Garrett County. I used to get 20, but now I get 25.
Okay.
But they have free community college in Garrett County, Maryland. But we don't do it for the whole state. I think that's inexcusable.
Yes, absolutely.
It's talk, rhetoric, but not getting it done.
Yes. Another major issue, especially here in Baltimore, let's talk public transportation. Baltimore doesn't have the greatest public transportation system, may feel like a stepchild at times. Now, during the debate, you stated that Larry Hogan took $900 million from Baltimore that should have gone towards our transportation system. Can you elaborate on that?
Let's first of all clarify one thing. This election should be all focused and centered on Baltimore, Baltimore, Baltimore. Baltimore is the gem that we have to invest in, and we have to help work side by side with the municipality, with the city, the mayor, the state delegation, with Westmore, and we have to all work together to help bring Baltimore back. We got 30 to 35,000 empty housing units here. We have education challenges. We have work challenges. We've got a lot of stuff to do, but we got to bring the bacon to Baltimore. Baltimore, and we got to focus on Baltimore. We opened our first campaign office in Baltimore City. That was very intentional. When we win, our office for the entire top #1 office will be in Baltimore City. I think it's probably an excellent chance. I'm going to move up here because we need to have a place here to be crystal clear where we are focused. Because if you aren't intentional, nothing good happens. So, but public transportation, I mean, Larry Hogan stole $900 million in the Red Line, took it from Baltimore, and just gave it back to the federal government. And saying what he did, with a car, I can get to any job in Baltimore in an hour. With public transportation, I can get to 9% of the jobs in an hour. You can't navigate without public transportation.
Absolutely.
This city, you cannot navigate it, and we don't have it.
And people are just trying to get to work.
I mean, get to work. That seems like a pretty reasonable thing to ask. I want to get to work, and I don't have money for a car, so I take public transportation, and it ain't there. It's not there. So we've got to have that top of our line, but we got to work on things to get them through. And being an appropriator, I understand the money. I'm a business guy, and I think what we need is more business people that understand business and how to grow an economy, grow jobs, how to build things, and that's, I built a business in 30 states, across the United States, went from zero to build something of significance and across the U.S. in the wine and spirit industry. But we need folks that have done stuff, not just been, a career public servant.
Absolutely. And sticking with transportation in Baltimore here, the Key Bridge, the collapse,
Wow.
horrific tragedy, the lives of 6 construction workers lost, a major transportation structure gone. And I would like to hear your take as how you would handle, if you are in office as senator, how does it look, especially ensuring that Baltimore gets what it's supposed to get out of the deal in terms of the funding that's going to go into this rebuild project and the resources and things like that. We talk about Baltimore being overlooked. Baltimore wants to make sure, because when the headlines were all over the world about this collapse, it was Baltimore's Key Bridge. Right?
Right, absolutely. I've been on this Key Bridge and driving the rebuild, the efforts to support our longshoremen. The longshoremen, they're endorsed us, all the longshoremen unions, and we're not getting them right now what they deserve. President Biden said they would be made whole. They're not being made whole. Some of them are struggling getting their unemployment even. We're reaching out, working with that to get the governor. But that's $430 a week. These folks are making almost $2,000 a week. They deserve to get back the $2,000 a week. And the government has not done it, has not stepped up. A lot of rhetoric, a lot of talk, and we've been calling out the state on this because the state who can move quickest. We got to get the state to move quickest. The federal government, we can reimburse the state. I can get that done. That we can get done in a bipartisan way. But because there's been other collapses in Florida, red states. This is a blue state. So we'll get this done bipartisan. But we've got to make our longshoremen, our Teamsters, our pilots, and our businesses, our independent truckers, they've got to get hold. Then we got to rebuild this bridge with union labor. We need project labor agreements, and we have to be very clear. And the request for proposal, that's the key. Don't just give me the talk. Put it in the proposal. So when you put in the request for proposal, a project labor agreement, we know we're going to use union labor, and that's labor here local, that's good paying labor, that's going to deliver the job on time and provide money to folks here in the construction industry in Baltimore. But it's going to be around $2 billion in my best guess. Today we're excited. The channel was cleared. The first boat went up the channel today. I been over the Key Bridge, the bridge many, many times. I went out on the cutter to see the wreckage myself at the Dolly with the 2-star from the Coast Guard with the governor. And I want to be an appropriator. We're going to get not just the 90%, but the 10% match. We're going to get the federal government to pay that also, because the state cannot be on the hook on this at all.
Right.
It's got to come out of the federal government. And that will be something I'm going to be a broken record on getting all the dollars back and using union jobs to make this happen.
Yes, and being an advocate that Baltimore receives the resources it's supposed to get.
Baltimore's got to get those resources, and we've been left high and dry time and time again.
Yes, indeed.
It's like the housing, this $1 housing program. We need a $1 housing program that's $1, but it's going to be backed up by federal low-interest loans on the Fed side, so we can have the federal government saying, hey, here you can get a low-interest loan, and you can take this house, and you can change things and get a home. We're leaving $200 million on the table that's not paid to the city of Baltimore because we don't have folks living in all these vacant properties. And they're not paying the property taxes because we don't have the properties filled up. So we've got to focus on the housing also. And we don't have affordable housing because we don't have, in some places in this country, enough housing.
Absolutely. Okay. You know, a lot of people feel that it may be refreshing to have someone in office that has a business mindset and business experience. So I wanted to ask you, as a businessman and a prospective senator, climate change and clean energy. I just wanted to get your take about that. I know you were asked about how can we address this and how can we fund it without disrupting the deficit, but
I'll tell you, thank you for that, because the problem with Washington, one of the many problems, there's lots of problems, it's pretty broken. It's a broken system, and we need big changes. But one of the biggest problems is no one thinks long-term. Every decision that we make in Washington should be about your grandchildren. Not about you, not even about your children, but about your grandchildren. If we focused on that, we get two big things right. One is education. Investing in people doesn't get any better than that, in my mind.
Yeah.
And the second piece is our environment. If we don't invest in the water, the air, the land, and our environment, we got nothing.
Yeah.
It's the number one existential threat. And the Inflation Reduction Act, $370 billion. Of course, I voted for it. Thank you, Joe Biden, for moving us forward. But we've got a lot to do to make that reality. But we also have to help the rest of the world. You know, we're talking about, why don't we take some of our technologies to South America, to Africa, to Asia, where they're going through a fossil fuel burning part of their industrial revolution because they're 50 years behind us, and give them the technology that we have on wind, the technology we have on solar. Give them the jobs, not like the Chinese who don't give them the jobs, but let's help these countries all over the world, and we can't be pulling away from places like Africa and saying, China, take it. We need to be there.
of course.
Present. And we need to be giving them the technologies to build these types of ways we can have clean energy, mini nuclear, mini small nuclear works also. Safe, unbelievably affordable, and 100% clean. So there's a lot of really good projects that we should be sharing with other parts of the world to bring them along, bring this together.
Yes, absolutely.
And people forget it.
Yes, absolutely, especially when we're talking clean energy and climate change. We're all on the same ball here.
We're on the same team.
We're all on the same team.
But you have to be able to fight against Exxon and Chevron, and if you take their money, I always go back to the money, because a business can, I understand that someone is giving the politicians money, and they're saying, well, we're going too fast. Well, you know what? We're not going too fast. We're not getting the job done to preserve look at the wildfires. I mean, look at the climate change we've already seen, the ice caps. This is real, and we've got to say, Exxon, no. We're just not doing it that way. We want it different.
Yeah. What about your opponents that are taking money and funding from companies like Exxon?
I mean, that's the problem. And I've tried to highlight that, and people are saying, David Trone, you spend a lot of money. Well, as I always say, well, I do. I spend my money that I worked on, I earned. I could give it to my kids. I've given tens of millions to charity. Or I could do this to change America. Change America in a lot of really good ways: addiction, mental health, medical research, education, climate, all those things. That's my mission. I'm on a mission because I'm mission driven, or be like a typical career politician. My opponent, take some money from Exxon, take some money from Pfizer, take some money from Cigna. I use Cigna Insurance. I try and get our mental health claims paid by Cigna. Good luck.
Oh, wow.
The answer always starts with no. And I guarantee anybody you know that's trying to get some mental health claims, they start with no.
And that's a problem.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
And so, taking money from the National Restaurant Association. We went out and served folks and had a big event in Baltimore here and talked about one fair wage. $3.65 ain't it.
Right.
It ain't working. So we support $15 minimum plus tips.
Right.
That's not even livable. 15 needs to be 20. And I talk to my friends in labor about that all the time. We need to move 15 to 20 and move on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think many would agree. Taking it back to Exxon and these companies and clean energy and climate change, there are some people that are so passionate about it and understand how urgent and how dire the situation is. And then there are some that seem to kind of just be tap dancing around. Do you think that it's because people are not, they think that they're not seeing the repercussions of what could potentially happen? Does the sky have to turn green or something for folks to realize that there are issues on hand?
How folks can not see what is happening to our world is incomprehensible. It is as real as you and I sitting across from each other. It is here, it is happening, and if we don't do something about it, and we don't be driving the horse, it ain't going to get fixed. But some folks, there's folks that voted for Donald Trump, and somehow, I don't know what they were thinking. They weren't thinking clearly, but at the end of the day, sometimes people get some bad ideas in their head.
Now, you're a successful man in your own right. You don't have to run for office for any reasons, for any career or financial reasons. So coming from being a businessman to a public servant, what urged that desire to do so?
Well, all my friends in business think I'm crazy. And why would you do that? Why would you put yourself through that? And most of my family thinks I'm crazy. Why would you put yourself through that? So I'm kind of on my own. And it's just an overwhelming, burning desire to say, I've been so lucky. And God, I'm a 6-year cancer survivor. I've been given a second chance in life. And I respect that. I acknowledge that. And I acknowledge that I have a mission. And the mission is the unique opportunity not to have to take the money from all those people that lead us down a bad road, their road, the Exxon road. Instead, we can do the road that's going to be about people over politics. And so I got a shot to change things across this country. That's why I didn't run for governor. I don't want to fix the potholes. I want to fix education, addiction. I want to work on national or medical research. I sat with Francis Collins one day, and I said, Francis, what's some of the things we could fix right now? And he said, sickle cell anemia. So I look at the African American community. It's sickle cell anemia, but we're not fixing it. And he said, all we need is money and time. And I'm saying, well, why can't we appropriate the money? So that's what I'm trying to do, is appropriate the money. Then we can address things, not have Big Pharma tell NIH what to focus on, not have Big Pharma with a seat at the table, but let's get everybody at the table.
Absolutely.
And if we have the table with folks from the faith community the other night, and I love the faith community. We need our ministers at the table because they're working on the same things we are: addiction, lack of housing, what we're doing with mental illness, giving folks second chances. These are the folks we need at the table. We don't need Exxon at the table.
Absolutely. People over politics.
It is people over politics, and that's where Ro Khanna and John and I and Jackson and I on bills like term limits. The politicians hate term limits because they just want to have their job forever. I want to have 2 years in the Senate, 2 terms in the Senate, 6 terms in the House, and be done. I might be happy with 1 term and be done between you and me, but at the end of the day, because it's just a backbreaking work, but it's work it's changing. You can see it changes America one step at a time.
Absolutely.
One step, but term limits would stop people being committee chairman. What's the one criteria people get to be a committee chairman? What do they have to do to become a committee chairman in the way politics works now? What do they have to do? What they have to do is live the longest. That's it.
Okay.
That is it completely. It's not they're the smartest. It's not they work the hardest.
Okay.
It's just whoever lives the longest.
Wow.
Because you get there by seniority.
Wow.
So I mean, that doesn't seem like a good plan to
Yeah.
me.
Pretty low prerequisite.
Doesn't seem like a
Requirement.
a very bad
Yeah.
requirement. So that's what if you had term limits of say 12 years, you have people could be committee chairman 7, 8 years in when they're in the prime of their life, and they could serve and then go home and be a teacher, be a union electrician, work in construction, do whatever. But they didn't have to live 40 years to become a chairman and get real power.
Absolutely.
That's craziness.
Absolutely. What else would you like the people of Maryland and of Baltimore to know about David Trone, and what separates you from the other candidates that are running for this Senate seat in Maryland?
Biggest thing that separates me is nobody will ever own me. No one will ever tell me to do their bidding. We'll always do the bidding because we're not taking their money. We'll do the bidding of what we think the people need, and people that are in the shadows, people that are struggling. That's where I focus. Those that are struggling, that's important. And the second piece is a track record. Not about, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. That's all rhetoric. In my mind, that's BS. And the political system in America has been being fed BS for decades. And I think when I talk to folks, they're a little bit tired of listening to all the BS, we're going to do this and that. And they want to say, hey, what'd you get done? Well, we've been getting stuff done. I'm ranked not only just the most effective member of Maryland, I'm also brought home the 6th most dollars to my district. So there's 213 Democrats, things called community project funding. I'm number 6. That means we funded things like crisis centers in Frederick and Hagerstown, Boys and Girls Clubs or rec centers in Frederick, Hagerstown, Cumberland, Oakland, bridges, VFWs, fire halls, whatever the community needed. We go to the community and say, what do we need? And I go get the money. And that's what Maryland needs. Someone that's a hustler is where we started, to go get the money, and you get it done because you're bipartisan. So I'm a uber progressive Democrat. I'm the progressive in this race. I'm the only one against the death penalty forever. I'm the only one not taking all that money. But at the end of the day, I'm ranked the 4th out of 535 most bipartisan. Because if you aren't bipartisan, you have to take the time to sit with other folks. Sit down with them, have a meal, have lunch. I sit with them in the chamber. I tell them about my family. I learn about their family. And what I've learned is Republicans struggle with mental illness. Republicans struggle with addiction. Republicans are justice impacted. Republicans are not satisfied with our education system. Republicans get cancer. And we're all we can find commonality. And I'm a convener and get people together. And that's the magic of bringing people together and seeing a vision that's the same.
Absolutely. If folks want to learn about more about David Trone, if they want to support the campaign, what is the best way for them to reach out? I know you can log on davidtrone.com.
Yeah, really, davidtrone.com. We've got 10 offices around the state. We're always looking for volunteers to knock doors, phone bank, text. So there's lots of opportunity. But most importantly, we need everyone to vote and get your friends out to vote, because you will save democracy in this race. We have to elect Joe Biden. There's no other option. And we will elect Hakeem Jeffries as our speaker, which will be spectacular. Hakeem is with me, and he will be an awesome speaker. And I'd like to predict one day he should be the president, because I think the man can do everything.
Okay.
And we got the real deal there.
All right.
But we got to hold the Senate. I can beat Larry Hogan. I can beat Larry Hogan all day, and we got to retire Larry Hogan or the Republicans control the U.S. Senate.
Absolutely. Congressman David Trone, thank you so much for joining me here today. I really appreciate you making time in your schedule as you are running in this upcoming election, 2024 election for the U.S. Senate for that Maryland seat. We appreciate you being here and best of luck to you.
Happy to do it. Thanks for having us.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
If you missed any episodes of the 2BMore podcast, you can log on WMAR2news.com. You can also check out our YouTube channel, WMAR, and click on the 2BMore playlist. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Erica Kane, and we'll see you next time.